Hello everybody. In this section we're going to be talking about the fundamentals of the actual financial system and how it's got to where it is today and where I think it's going to be going. Because if you want to understand why we are enslaved to the system, you need to understand what it is that's actually enslaving you, right? So the financial system isn't set up for the average person, okay? It's been created so that most of the money ends up to the very top of the pyramid, if you like. And don't take that as like an horrendous negative or, we hate the rich people. That is not it at all, because there's a lot of wealthy people out there who do a lot of good for the people. That isn't what we're saying. The central banking system, which was created really 250, 300 years ago, was in a sense an evolution of what we had before, which was more or less chaos. So we had a lot more religious dogma at that time, and during the Enlightenment period, that was sort of a jump in human consciousness. And that is at the same time when central banking took its grip. So with the central banking system, it gives these essential power, which is a very few people and very few organisations, a hell of a lot of power. They can print money, charge interest on that money, and have sort of no recourse. There's no, if they completely mess it up, it doesn't really matter because they're in control of everything. So it's just a systemic issue and concern that if you're not aware of it happening, then you never know why you can never actually get out of it. Okay, so we need to be aware of this system that we are in. You can break free of that. You just need to know how it's there and what you can do in order to leave there, and the psychology that you need to do it. So as I said there, as human beings evolved out of, big man in the sky with all morality, good and evil, as we've sort of gone through that, and now we've gone through the scientific realm, the manifestation of that is what we would now call capitalism. And it's not a bad thing at all. It's a very, very good thing at the time. Capitalism sort of thrived through individualism. And individualism, although it could be seen as quite a selfish thing, there's two sides of selfishness. There's a positive side and a negative side. What we see a lot of today is the negative side. For example, destroying nature in order to drill for oil. That's a negative thing, right? The positive side of selfishness is taking control of one's life, making sure that you are looked after, making sure that you and your family are looked after. That is a good form of selfishness, as an example. Okay, but capitalism is sort of a manifestation of a selfish idea, both positive and negative. Okay, so let's use the 2008-2009 financial crisis. As these central banks printed all this money, all the money gets funneled into Wall Street, or if you're in the UK, into the city of London, the square mile of London. Now, as that money just flows into there, goes into very few people's hands, and like a tiny minute of it flows to the average person. Okay, now, if you're privileged enough to be in those circles that receive a lot of this cash, investment funds, government coffers often, good for you. You won't even need to be listening to this. But if you're the average person like myself, you need to be aware of what's happening. You need to be aware that money's being printed on a whim without any recourse. People are being charged interest on that money. Now, if you can imagine just £1 or $1 or €1, if you can imagine that as a token of energy, so £1 or $1 is just one token of energy, and I give you that token, and I charge you interest on that token that you have to pay me. So I give you life force, and then you give me back more life force than I give you. It's an ever expanding bubble, right? And this is what happens in the system, is that it goes up, 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 big crash, up, 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 big crash. And these are set up. These are created by certain people. There are natural cycles, of course, but a lot of them For example, I'm not saying he caused this, but George Soros made tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of pounds by what's known as shorting the pound during the Great Recession of, I think it was the late 80s, I think it was, in the UK. Made hundreds of millions when everyone else was losing their shirt. That's an example. Okay, so it's a systemic issue. But now you're aware of what's going on. So printing money out of thin air and charging interest is a phenomenal business model, but something you and I can't ever aspire to really achieve. Okay, otherwise you probably wouldn't be listening to that. But how does that bleed into wage slavery? Well, if you look at the hierarchy of an organisation, you might have the directors or the owner, directors, management, and then the average worker. The times now have gone where you go in at the bottom as the cleaner or something and work your way up to be a director. That's gone. That's finished. We've got robots, artificial intelligence. We've got different models, mental models and systems and processes happening in the world today where most human jobs are going to be gone. So if you're reliant now on a wage to keep you going and pay your bills and pay your mortgage, I think anybody who is reliant on other people to pay their wages now is, in terms of a job, a standard job, you're in for a rude awakening. And this is why I'm very fortunate to be able to be in Turkey right now, recording towards the end of October, as UK is about to go back into lockdown by the looks of it, is because I've set up and designed my life in such a way that I don't need to be at anybody's beck and call. Anybody can do it. You just need to know the system and the psychology behind it and be aware of what's happening around you in order to tap into that source. Because the money, there's never ever been so much money in the world as there is today. It's unlimited. I think they've printed like $10 trillion in the last 9 months or something during this pandemic. So the money's there, you just need to know how to tap into it. So just be aware that the system is not set up for you, the average person. It's not set up for the average worker who's done 9 to 5 for 20, 30 years. They're not going to help you. There's never going to be a government to say, there's the money. We might even go down the universal basic income route, but you'll never be wealthy. If you want to escape being at the mercy of the government or the corporations, any place of work, which is great, we all need entrepreneurs, we need business, but if you want to escape that and design your life on your own terms, you need to realise that it's not set up for you. You need to create your own financial economy. Okay, right, we're going to be talking about the psychology behind where your mindset needs to be in order to actually break free from the crowd, because the crowd will hold you back. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the next video.